I am fed up to here with this treasure hunt business. Yeah. Ira, you miserable worm, you lied to me. You said she was a city girl, out of her element. Just get her in the map and bring him back. What went wrong? I'll tell you what went wrong. She's got herself a partner who likes shooting holes and everything.
The minimum price for taking a stranded woman to a telephone is $400.
$375 in traveler's checks?
Got a deal.
Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner.
There's nothing you can say that'll make me go back into that hellhole. Stop it! All right, I'll go back. But this time, you're coming with me.
Romancing the Stone, rated PG.
Starts Friday, March 30th at a selected theater near you.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrique Couto and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Do You Even Movie? Yes. I'm your host, Henrique Couto, here with my good buddy and co-host, Double D, Louis De Neuer.
Greetings.
The man, the myth, the legend, and we're wrapping up Love Month.
We are indeed. We've already made it through our 4 selections, and I'm going to just say it. I think we saved the best for last.
That's saying something.
I know it is, because I'm a huge fan of My Bloody Valentine, but I fucking love this movie a lot.
Okay, well, I guess I'm honestly shocked that you would say that after we had done Stuck in Love. We did My Bloody Valentine.
Heather's last week.
Heather's, yeah.
But yeah, there's something about Romancing the Stone that it hits every level for me, and that's why I was so excited to show it to you, because when you told me via text message, because I sent you the lineup, and I was like, what do you think of this? And you're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I've never seen Romancing the Stone, by the way.
Well, in my defense, I had seen Romancing the Bone.
The Bone. That's what everybody always says.
Well, I'm one of them.
I'm aware now.
No. But no, it was one of those that was around, and just never really came into my life. And I was curious, and generally speaking, on this show, we try to do movies that we both think that we both think are worthy of a lot of dissection.
Yeah.
But occasionally, especially if how do we put this? If my professional life is particularly busy, then I just let you go ruckshot.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I mean, how often in our friendship are you going to be like, dude, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think it's an absolute piece of crap?
Slaughter High is really the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah, but Slaughter High, okay. Slaughter High is cheesy fun, though.
Yeah.
So you could say, like, oh, some people hate Slaughter High, rightfully so.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, Romancing the Stone or Stuck in Love, where it'd be like, why would somebody not like those films?
Yeah.
So, and I have to admit, I felt like I had missed out on a massive chunk of the 80s having not seen this film.
I get that.
So, but before we get to that, I feel like we have to pontificate about love.
Okay.
Because you're wearing pink.
Yes, I am. I'm wearing my Scene Queen hoodie. Yes, I am.
And no, actually, I worry we've pontificated too much about love on this show.
That could be fair.
I know that we unfortunately, thanks to you, lost our LinkedIn sponsorship. So,
so real quick story.
Okay.
A couple of my coworkers listened to the show, so shout out to them, Tara and Jordan, and they came over to my desk on, I can't remember when that show dropped. I think it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a few.
And they came over to my desk and they were like, "Is that LinkedIn story true?" And I was like, "Unfortunately, yes." And they're like, "What did you do?" And I was like,
And then you were like, give me a little something from the snack machine, and I'll tell you all A tale as old as time itself.
I told them the next party that we have where we have time, I'll go into the whole story. But yeah, it was funny because they literally came to my desk and they were like, that story really happened. And I was like, did you listen to the show? And they're like, we did. And I was like, shit, people are listening to the show
I'm so sorry.
No, that I interact with on a basis. So now
I like on a basis.
On a basis.
I don't want to say daily because I can't be sober that often. But well, I am lucky. My coworkers don't listen to the show.
I'm aware of this.
Well, it's just Henwolf.
Yeah.
And
she may listen to the show. She just can't comment as much.
Well, the earbuds don't fit in dogs' ears. So, but no. So, with that all being said,
yes,
I've been debating whether I want to share one of my weirdest dating stories on the show. I have a lot of them. So this one is about, it's the Die Hard breakup.
Yes, I was hoping it was, because that's one of the things I love is you and I technically have Die Hard breakup stories.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know. I've never told this story in a public setting.
Proceed.
So years and years ago, I was living in New Jersey and working at a film studio. And I was living in North Jersey, just outside of New York City. And I'll tell you one positive of living in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
The dating pool is deep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the Union, or at least it was at that time. And I had met this girl, and I was in a pretty, I can't believe I'm telling the story in public. I was in a pretty dark place. And I was having a lot of problems with my sense of self-worth and stuff. And I had went on this date with this girl who I would say was a knockout. I mean, she was just obscenely attractive. I used to have a saying in my 20s, when I would meet a girl that was very pretty, I would go, I would make mistakes for that. That was my saying. I would make mistakes for that. And we went on a date. And it was one of the worst first dates I'd ever been on.
Okay.
She barely said anything. She didn't laugh at my jokes, which is impossible, by the way. If you've been listening to the show, you know, unbelievably hilarious, never-ending humor, a fountain of hilarity. But we went on this date, and it blew. It was not good. And afterward, I went home and I was like, well, I don't think there's going to be another date. And lo and behold, a few days later, she called me and asked me on a second date. She was like, hey, do you want to get together again? So I said, sure. And then that's when I started to wonder, like, maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe she was in a bad mood. Yeah. Maybe she'd had a bad day at work or something. Or maybe I did.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe it's all good. So we went on another date and it was the same thing. It was like comatose and boring. And it's one thing to be a boring person.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be rudely boring. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's like she didn't just not laugh at my jokes or give to the conversation enough.
Yeah.
She was like kind of shitty about it too.
Okay.
So when that date's over, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going back to being super duper lonely. That's my move.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a state I'm not from. My family's far away.
Totally get it.
What are you going to do? You don't get it. How you live like 45 minutes from your family.
Fair enough. I mean, no, I only live like 10 minutes away from my family.
Well, no, I meant at your most distance,
At distance
from your family.
Hour.
At that time, I was a solid 9.5 hours by car. So on Wednesday of that week, she calls me again and asks me out again. And I just said yes, because I was like super lonely and pathetic. I don't know how else to put it. I was just super lonely. I didn't have a very good sense of self-worth, and I was lonely all the time. So the morning of that Friday, when we're supposed to go out on Friday night, comes, and the whole day I'm just dreading this date. And on top of that, I really cannot overstate that this story is it's only a horrible, horrible story if you don't understand that I was in a really bad mental place.
Fair enough.
Because I would never treat a person like I'm about to say I treated them.
I get that. I totally get that.
But I was in a really bad mental place. So I came home from work dreading this date all day. I took a shower. I got myself cleaned up. I was tidying up my apartment because we were supposed to meet at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And as 7 o'clock rolled around, something just broke in my brain. I don't know why, but my brain just snapped.
Yeah.
Honestly, I might have been on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
That happens.
I've had a couple, okay? I've had a couple. I never freaked out at a Winn-Dixie and threw stuff at people, but I've had a couple nervous breakdowns, and that's not a brag.
No, I get that.
That's not a good time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in my brain was like, okay, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go on this date. So don't go on the date. Just stay home, put on Die Hard.
Yes.
And relax.
Absolutely.
So I do.
Yeah.
Note, there was no part where I called her,
yes,
or text her, or in any way interact with the person.
Her, yes.
Correct. So I'm watching Die Hard, and it's 8:15, and I get a call, or I get a text first. And she's just like, "Hey, where are you?" And my brain was like, I'm watching Die Hard, duh. So I just texted and said, "Oh, I'm watching Die Hard." And she replied and was like, "Okay.
Yeah.
Are you leaving now?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?" And at that moment, in my muddled brain of exhaustion and depression, my brain was like, well, you can explain to this young lady, this kind young lady,
what's going on
in your head and how you're having strong emotions that you don't enjoy her company and all these hard things to get across.
Or
you could explain the plot of Die Hard.
Yes.
So I start telling her, these terrorists have taken Nakatomi Plaza and John McClane wants to meet his wife. So she calls me and she's like, "What is going on? Are we getting together? Are we meeting or what? What is happening?"
Yeah.
And I just started going, well, John McClane was at the party, but he wasn't invited. So when the terrorists take the place, he's throwing a wrench in everything. But if they find out who his wife is, they're going to use her against him.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "He doesn't have any shoes and there's broken glass everywhere." And I kid you not, long silence.
Yeah.
Long silence. Long silence. And then she just sighed and went, "You're a fucking idiot. Never call me again," and hung up.
Oh my God.
And then I finished watching Die Hard.
As you should.
And then over the course of many months, I healed.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
So there, I wanted to make it up to you. You, without me actually cajoling you heavily, you told us a very embarrassing story of love
that I forgot about until this show.
Yeah, well, good. That's what we're all about here.
Yeah.
I want to make sure if you can be in pain, you should be in pain.
Exercise those demons.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yes.
So anybody out there who is thinking, boy, I want to date Henrique, well, good luck. But with that all being said,
yes,
tonight's film is the 1984 now classic, I would say. Romancing the Stone.
Yes, sir.
Double D, you want to give those deets?
I would love to. So 1984 is Romancing the Stone, 1 hour and 46 minutes, rated PG, mind you, by the way. You've just seen it, rated PG. Are you surprised at all?
Well, this was
before
PG-13. If it did exist, it barely existed. So I think this is a solid 80s PG.
Absolutely, yeah. So this film is directed by some guy I've never really heard of him, Robert Zemeckis.
Bobby Zem.
Bobby Zem, indeed. So Bobby Zem started in 1975 as a writer on Kolchak the Night Stalker.
I did not know he started on Kolchak.
I didn't either. Then he goes on to do I Want to Hold Your Hand, where he was the writer and director in 1978. He does 1941 and 79, where he also wrote the screenplay. He directs and writes Used Cars in 1980, then does Romancing the Stone in 1984. Now, Back to the Future comes out in 85, but I'm going to stop right here. We're gonna do a spoiler right now for something I have usually saved in the notes.
Spoiler alert.
Romancing the Stone was going in everybody's mind to be a huge flop.
Really?
It was going to be a huge flop, so much so that Zemeckis was fired. He was preemptively fired from directing Cocoon because they were just like, this isn't going to do, we don't want this guy back.
Damn.
Goes on to be a monumental success, which I'll get to in the notes later. So much so that he got to do his passion project, which was Back to the Future in 1985.
Well, and I want to point out, though, that you're like, as I'm going to point out in a second, the director of Back to the Future became famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we know that, Double D.
So Back to the Future 1985. Then he goes on to do Amazing Stories in 86. He directs Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 88. Does Tales from the Crypt in 89, where he was a writer on it as well. Back to the Future 2 in 89. Back to the Future 3, 1990. Writer of Trespass in 1992.
For real?
For real.
I forgot about that. That must have been one of those screenplays he wrote a while back and they picked up because Bobby Zemeckis, Robert Zemeckis was in high demand ever since Back to the Future. It really kind of stapled him because cemented him. Yeah. And don't forget, he didn't just do Back to the Future. He did 2 and 3.
Yeah, 2 and 3, which was
I'm just mentioning, like, he was the man.
Yeah.
Him and the other Bob Gale.
Bob Gale,
who wrote Back to the Future with him.
Yeah.
They are the team that made a seminal not a cult classic, a world classic.
World classic.
Everybody loves Back to the Future.
Absolutely does. So then he does Death Becomes Her as a director and producer in 92. Does Forrest Gump as a director in 94.
Never heard of it.
Bordello of Blood Writer in 1996.
Him and Bob Gale did that one in college.
Yep. Then he directs Contact in 97. What Lies Beneath, where he's the director and producer in 2000. Castaway 2000 director. Polar Express writer and director in 04. Does Beowulf in 07. Christmas Carol remake, the Jim Carrey one in 09. He does Flight in 2012, The Walk 2015, Welcome to Marwen 2018, and then in 2020 he writes and directs the Witches remake that was for HBO.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I am shocked how many holes I have personally in Robert Zemeckis' directing.
Yeah.
I have not seen so many of those.
I didn't know. I forgot about the Witches. Witches actually is pretty solid. I love the original with Angelica Houston, which might be a future episode on here. And then last directorial was Pinocchio in 2022. Producing wise, though, I was just curious. He was the producer on Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight in 1995, The Frighteners 1996, House on Haunted Hill remake in 1999, 13 Ghosts in 2001, Ghost Ship 2002, Matchstick Men 2003, Gothica 2003, House of Wax 2005, Last Holiday in 06, Monster House in 06, and Real Steel in 2011.
Well, and it's worth mentioning, too, he was one of the brain trust of Hollywood elite that brought Tales from the Crypt into the world initially as a TV show.
Absolutely.
With him and Richard Donner and Joel Silver and all these big Hollywood guys.
Hollywood names.
Well, and it was crazy, the idea that there was this TV show on HBO and it had the biggest names in Hollywood behind it. I mean, basically, you could have literally said Tales from the Crypt, brought to you by everybody but Spielberg.
Basically, yeah.
And people are like, why is it Spielberg here? It's like, because he has amazing stories.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why he's not here.
And since we're on the subject, shout out to our buddies Gil Adler and Al Katz.
We love you guys. Gil and Al, you guys are the men behind making Tales from the Crypt live on longer, because they took over on season 3, brought the show in under budget and allowed it to live on for 7 full seasons.
So shout out to our buddies. So wrapping us up, or no, excuse me, not wrapping us up. So then we move on to the writers. So this is a bit interesting. So we have Diane Thomas, who is the main writer credited on Romancing the Stone. She also gets credited in 85 for the characters for the sequel, Jewel of the Nile. There's a sequel. It's not that good. We'll talk.
Where's the
Watch out, guys. It's a hot take.
It's not a hot take at all. Not a hot take at all.
Hateful Dave is hateful.
So Diane Thomas, unfortunately, with this being her only writing credit, it's because she passed away in 85 due to a drunk driving accident with either her husband or boyfriend at the time. They unfortunately crashed going 80 miles in, I believe, is a Lamborghini. Like, it was really sad. I read about it earlier. With that said, there are 3 uncredited writers on here. The first one we have is Lem Dobbs, who did Romancing the Stone in 84, then does Hider in the House in 1989.
Wait.
Yeah.
The Gary Busey film.
Gary Busey, Ali Sheedy, Hider in the House.
With literally one of the greatest posters in the history of cinema.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I cannot recommend enough. Look up the poster for Hider in the House. Also watch the film. But that poster, it's literally like this woman's all snugly in her bed, and then there's just this really artful like window with blue light and just Busey.
just staring.
I love Hider in the House.
No, it's a great one. So Lem Dobbs, Romancing the Stone, 84, Hider in the House, 89, then goes on to write The Hard Way, the James Woods and, oh my God, Michael J. Fox action comedy from 91, where...
I did not know about that.
So Michael J. Fox plays an actor that's going into a new role as a cop, so he decides to observe James Woods.
I saw that on cable.
Oh, yeah. No,
I saw that on cable as a kid.
So then there's Kafka in 1991, Dark City in 1998, The Limey in 1999, The Score in 2001, Fear Itself in 2009.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then Haywire 2011, and unfortunately Gotti in 2018, but we won't hold that against Lem Dobbs.
Wow, hateful about Gotti, huh?
Have you seen Gotti?
No!
Yeah, I didn't think so. So then the second uncredited writer is Howard Franklin. He did Name of the Rose in 1986, Someone to Watch Over Me in 1987, writes and directs Quick Change in 1990.
Okay.
Then does The Man Who Knew Too Little in 97 as a writer, The Big Year in 2011. And then our final uncredited writer is Tara Silverman. She starts out in 1964 on The Entertainers, goes on to work on That Girl in 67, Captain Nice in 67, The Monkees TV show in 67, Dean Martin Show in 68, Room 222 in 69, The Bill Cosby Show in 71, and Mary Tyler Moore Show in 74.
That is a busy, busy schedule.
So you've technically got 4 writers on this film, but props to Diane Thomas, rest in peace as well, because I think from what I've read, primarily her script is what was still kept. There were just touch-ups with these writers for the most part.
Sure.
A lot of character fine-tuning. Like the addition of Joan Wilder's cat was one of the writer's additions to make her more accepting to the audience.
More sad.
Yes. So then wrapping us up is a cinematographer. I really am not familiar with much of his work, Mr. Dean Cundey.
Dean Cundey, eh?
Dean Cundey. I mean, he doesn't have much on here. You know, we've got, so he starts in 73 as a director of photography on the No Mercy Man, goes on to do Brothers and Run in 73, Where the Red Fern Grows in 74, The Witch Who Came from the Sea in 76.
How did I forget he shot that?
He's uncredited on it.
Have you seen that?
Not yet. It's on my Shutter list because you have that box set.
I discovered that on Arrow's American Horror Project, I think is what they call it.
American Horror Project.
And it's where they release a 3-pack of kind of lost classic American horror movies.
Yeah.
And they're always interesting. Because that one also had like Malatesta's Carnival of Blood and one other film I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I can't.
But The Witch Who Came from the Sea, which was a video nasty, which I don't see why. It's not that nasty of a film, although it does have some, actually it gets pretty churning.
Hey, shout out to our buddy Rob Fields right now, who's literally watching every single one of them.
Every video nasty, baby. But that film was, if I'm remembering correctly, was directed by Matt Cimber.
That sounds correct, yes.
But do you know who Matt Cimber is?
No.
Matt Cimber was the man behind Glow. Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Shit, okay.
He's the guy Mark Maron plays in the Netflix series.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Cimber made a boatload of exploitation movies before he got tied in with Glow.
Yeah.
And Cimber was known for being a lot to take. But, though, I could see Cundey shooting it because it looks really good.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's a fun, weird, slow, eerie flick.
Yeah.
And I do recommend it quite a bit. I love watching a restoration of a movie everybody forgot about.
Yeah, no,
that's one of my favorite things in the world. So anyway, but that one I had no idea.
Yeah, so Witch from the Sea in 76, Creature from Black Lake in 76.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he goes on to do The Human Tornado in 76, Satan's Cheerleaders in 77.
Now we're cooking with gas.
And then in 78, he does a little film called Halloween.
No, I'm thinking of Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, yeah, that's fair. Rock and Roll High School in 79, The Fog in 1980, Escape from New York in 81, Halloween 2 in 81, The Thing in 82, Halloween 3 in 82, Psycho 2 in 83, Romancing the Stone in 84, Back to the Future in 85, Big Trouble in Little China in 86, Big Business in 88, Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 88, Roadhouse in 89, Nothing But Trouble in 1991, Hook in 91.
How did I not know he shot Nothing But Trouble?
Oh, he shot Nothing But Trouble. Death Becomes Her in 92, Jurassic Park 93, Casper 95, Apollo 13 95, What Women Want in 2000, Looney Tunes Back in Action 2003, episodes of The West Wing in 05, The Holiday in 2006, Jack and Jill in 2011.
Finally, something good.
Diablo in 2015, and most recently, he's been shooting episodes of The Mandalorian.
So, Dean Cundey has one of the most interesting DP lives, director of photography lives, and we've talked a lot about, we love to cover cinematographers on the show because cinematographers generally have very interesting careers where they take the jobs they can get in the beginning and then they usually fall into a groove.
Yeah.
But Cundey fell into a different groove than many others because Cundey was doing B movies. He was doing whatever work he could get. And then he fell in with John Carpenter and became John Carpenter's go-to guy for a decade. But then he became Bob Zemeckis' go-to guy, which led to him becoming Spielberg and then Ron Howard's go-to guy.
Yeah.
So he literally at one point was a go-to director of photography for all of the Academy Award-winning directors in the world.
Yes.
And he was one of the most sought-after directors of photography. I think the only person, in my opinion, and maybe I'll find out that there are more like this, that has a career that interesting as a cinematographer is Daniel Pearl.
Yeah.
You don't know who that is, do you?
No, I do not.
Look at this hateful bastard. Look at this hateful bastard here.
The name sounds really familiar, but I can't think of any goddamn thing right now.
He was the director of photography on a little tiny movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
And he became the IT DP through the 90s doing music videos and commercials. He's still working like crazy.
Wow.
And in a fascinating Hail Mary, he had directed a ton of music videos for a guy named Marcus Nispel. And Marcus Nispel went on to get a job directing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake.
That makes sense.
And Marcus called up Daniel and was like, would it be unheard of to have UDP, the remake of the movie UDP, to start with?
Yeah.
And Pearl was like, if you want me, I'm in.
Yeah.
And so Dan Pearl DP'd the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which could not be more different films stylistically.
Absolutely.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for the film nerds out there, it was shot on high-grain 16mm film so that it would look better when it was blown up to 35mm film, but still cost less money than shooting on 35. So Pearl had to use the brightest lights he could get access to.
Yeah.
He had to use direct sunlight half the time to get actors to expose. Famously, the scene where the cook is beating the crap out of the hitchhiker in front of the truck. Those aren't headlights because the truck's headlights weren't bright enough to expose the film.
Oh my God.
So they were actually 2,000-watt lights put in front of the truck's headlights in order to get that effect.
That's
because
nuts.
The film was so lacking in light sensitivity. That's why you have all those stories about when they were they're doing the dinner scene, the food started rotting. Because the lights were so hot. And just in case you wanted it to be more unpleasant, it was the middle of Texas summer.
Yep.
So they would be in a room with like a grand total of 20,000 watts of light.
Jesus.
And it was 110 degrees outside.
Oh my God.
So, and this was an era when air conditioning was optional in houses. So Dan Pearl, another guy, holy crap. I mean, and I don't even know half of his catalog. I just know that he's still one of the main guys. Cundey is kind of in a quasi-retirement.
Yeah.
And he's up there. I mean, he's got to be 80 maybe.
Easily.
But Dan Pearl, I follow him on Instagram. He's still traveling the world filming stuff.
That is awesome.
Super interesting. And that's why, I know I say it a lot, but that's why we cover and salute our cinematographers, because you never know. Ever since that one day, I was watching This Is 40 by Judd Apatow, and I went, who DP'd this? Because it's really grainy and cool. And then I found out it was the same director of photography as Stripped to Kill 2 Live Girls.
Yep.
That was when I realized, holy crap, directors of photography, you never know. I mean, oh man, I'm forgetting his name right now. But an Oscar-winning DP shot 3 or 4 movies for Al Adamson.
Yeah, I remember you and I talking about that.
Yeah, he even was in the documentary talking about it. So they were the first people willing. I think his name was Wilhelm or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We'll talk about him eventually because one of his films will come up sooner than later. But anyway, I digress. But Dean Cundey deserves quite a digression.
Well, and I think he will be welcomed back to the show with that lineup, I think.
I don't know. Were any of those films on the list good?
So, getting into the synopsis of Romancing the Stone, this is from the back of the 20th Century Fox Blu-ray. It says, when her sister is kidnapped by thugs searching for a priceless jewel in Colombia, a romance novelist soon finds her own life filled with adventure. She sets out to rescue her sister and meets with a handsome fortune seeker who convinces her to beat the bandits to the treasure.
Nice.
My synopsis: a romance novelist finds herself sucked into one of her own adventure novels when her sister is kidnapped by thugs who are hunting priceless treasure. With the help of a handsome treasure hunter, the two are on race against time and bounty hunters to rescue her sister and find the jewel while falling in love along the way.
Aw, yours is a lot more of a Streisand.
You know, you're not wrong.
No, yours is the girl one.
So I will say, before we continue, Romancing the Stone is unfortunately not streaming anywhere right now for free, as we say. You will have to rent or buy it, but it's worth it, in my opinion.
What it's made me realize, to cut to the chase a little too fast, is it's made me realize, boy, do I need to dig into Zemeckis' filmography, especially his early stuff.
Yeah.
I really need to, because I have always been obsessed with Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And I ate up the commentary tracks on that first DVD set.
Oh, yeah.
With him and Bob Gale. I could not get enough of them.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, boy, I gotta check out more stuff he's done.
And on the same note as commentary tracks, if you find Cundey on commentary tracks, those are worth a listen.
No, he's fascinating to listen to.
He is so fun to listen to.
I remember he did an interview on Killer POV or Shockwaves, one of those podcasts.
Yep.
And he was fascinating to listen to.
Stories, yeah. So rounding us out is our cast. We have a little name named Michael Douglas in this.
Mikey Douglas.
Mikey Douglas.
Little Mikey Douglas is in this?
Little Mikey Douglas is in this. Playing Jack Colton. He first started in 1966 with Cast a Giant Shadow. He then does Hail Hero in 1969, Summertime in 71, gets his big start on Street to San Francisco TV series in 72. Then he grabs Coma the film in 1976, The China Syndrome in 1979. Have you seen The China Syndrome?
I have not.
Oh, man, that's on the list. That's on the list. The Star Chamber in 1983, does Romancing the Stone in 1984, and then listen to this career from this point on.
Yeah, because you were not even a twinkle in your father's eye when I was watching Michael Douglas in movies.
Exactly. So Jewel of the Nile in 1985, Fatal Attraction in 1987, Wall Street in 87, Black Rain in 1989, War of the Roses in 89, Basic Instinct in 92, Falling Down in 93, Disclosure in 1994, The American President 95, Ghost in the Darkness 96, The Game 97, A Perfect Murder 98, Traffic 2000, Don't Say a Word 2001, The In-Laws remake in 2003, The Sentinel 2006, Ghosts of Girlfriend's Past 2009, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps 2010, Haywire 2011, Behind the Candelabra 2013, Las Vegas 2013, Beyond the Reach. This is what I wanted to ask you about. Have you seen Beyond the Reach?
I have not seen Beyond the Reach.
It's his most dangerous game. So he goes out to these dunes with this guide, and he accidentally shoots a guy while they're out there, and the guy, of course, is like, well, we have to tell somebody, and he's like, no, we don't.
Wait. What's the title again?
Beyond the Reach.
It takes place in the desert?
Yes.
No, I saw it.
It's so good.
Yeah. No, I remember that one. And it is really good.
Really good.
No, because the cover is him with the cowboy hat and the rifle. No, I saw it. I saw it on streaming.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
So Ant-Man 2015, Avengers Endgame 2019, and then Quantum Mania in 2023. Again, curious about his producing credits, so I just looked at it. He was a producer on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975, producer on China Syndrome in 79, producer on Romancing the Stone, Starman in 1984.
Really?
Jewel of the Nile 85, Flatliners 1990.
Why is he on
Stone Cold 1991, Double Impact 1991, Made in America 1993, Face Off 1997, The Rainmaker 1997, and Ratchet, the Netflix series in 2020.
All right, I want to say something. I want to know why Michael Douglas had all these producer credits, because I have a theory based on nothing.
Yeah.
I want to preface this. I am basing this just on my brain right this second. I have not done any research.
Okay.
But the only guess I could have for some of these films might be that maybe he was at some point attached to star in them.
And that could be, yeah.
And then either was no longer available, or they didn't want him anymore, or he aged out of the role, and he ended up being a producer as a way to buy him out.
Yeah.
That is literally just a guess, because all of those films you mentioned are really epic, and he could have been in them if they were maybe 10 years earlier. Though.
Yeah.
So that's my guess. But for all I know, he's just a prolific producer and loves movies. But that was my immediate thought. Again, based on nothing, I'm a liar.
So moving through our cast, Kathleen Turner plays Joan Wilder in this. She got her start on The Doctors in 1978. Body Heat in 1981. That was her second movie. I had no idea.
I would not have guessed that she was that new.
Yeah. So then she does The Man with Two Brains in 1983, Romancing the Stone 1984, Crimes of Passion in 1984.
That's a feature film.
Pritzi's Honor 1985, Jewel of the Nile 1985, Peggy Sue Got Married 86, Switching Channels 88, Who Framed Roger Rabbit 88, The Accidental Tourist in 88.
Wait, who was she in Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Jessica Rabbit. She's
Oh, okay. I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I did the same thing when I read it. I was like, wait, who's? Oh, never mind. War of the Roses in 89, V.I. Wysharski in 91, Undercover Blues 93, The Simpsons 1994, future episode Serial Mom in 1994.
Oh yeah, Serial Mom is how I first discovered Kathleen Turner.
I love Serial Mom. Simple Wish 1997, and Welcome to the Show 1999, Baby Geniuses.
Yes, finally, we're finally here. We finally made it, my friends. So, an inside joke in my group of friends, but especially with poor young David here, is whenever he's trying to figure out a movie, he's like, what's that movie with so-and-so and so-and-so? I always go, oh, is that the movie with the babies that are geniuses? Or if you say, like, have you ever seen blank? I'll go, is that movie with the babies that are geniuses? It's a long-running joke. I cannot get enough of it, but we've arrived.
We've arrived. So, Virgin Suicides in 99 as well. Voices on King of the Hill in 2000. Makes an appearance on Friends in 01. Monster House 06. Nip Tuck 06. Californication 2009.
God, her character in Californication so good.
You remember Nurse from 2013?
I never saw it, the 3D movie?
God, you're lucky.
Wow.
No, it's bad.
Wow, Dave hates it.
I really, really wanted to like it because like Judd Nelson is in it, and there's a pretty good cast in it. But of course, Judd Nelson.
Is that Nurse 3D?
Yeah, Nurse 3D.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was okay. Yeah, I never saw it.
Dumb and Dumber 2 2014, Family Guy 2017, Rick and Morty 2019, Mom in 2020, The Estate 2022, and she has a movie coming out this year called The Long Game as well.
Well, I didn't know she did so much voice work, but it makes sense. She has a very recognizable voice, even when she's a young pup in this film.
Absolutely. And rounding out our cast, Mr. Danny DeVito, who plays Ralph in the movie. He got his start in 1970 with a film called Dreams of Glass. Excuse me.
How dare you?
He goes on to do Peg Leg, Musket, and Saber in 1973, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest 75, Car Wash in 76, The World's Greatest Lover 77, Going South in 78. Same year he nails Taxi in 78, and basically has a series for, I think Taxi ran, 7, 10
Taxi
seasons?
was a long-running hit, yeah.
The Gong Show movie, 1980, Going Ape in 81, Terms of Endearment in 1983, Romancing the Stone, 1984, The Ratings Game, where he actually has his first directorial as well in 84. He does Johnny Dangerously in 84, Jewel of the Nile in 1985, Ruthless People, 1986, Throw Mama from the Train, which he also directs in 87, Twins, 1988, War of the Roses, another directorial for him, Batman Returns in 1992, Hoffa in 92, which he also directs, Jack the Bear in 93, Last Action Hero in 93, Look Who's Talking Now in 93, The Larry Sanders Show in 1994.
We're seriously going to go through Danny DeVito. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy's been in so much good stuff.
But this resume just keeps going. Junior 94, Get Shorty 95, Matilda 96, which he also directed, Space Jam 96, Mars
directed
Attacks.
Matilda? How did I not know that?
Oh, man, have you not seen the bonus feature on the Blu-ray where he has the Tea Party reunion with the cast?
I knew that he was a major element.
Oh,
but
yeah.
for some reason, my brain just did not remember he was the director.
You want to break your heart real quick?
Is it about the girl?
It's about the girl, but do you know the story?
I know it basically, but go on.
So Mara Wilson, I read her bio, really, really good bio. She tells a story because Mara Wilson's mother unfortunately passed pretty young.
This is the young woman who played Matilda in Matilda.
Yeah. And her mother passed pretty young, and one of the things that she was talking about Danny later on, I think actually like when they were filming that Tea Party reunion for the bonus features, is she said, I wish my mom could have seen the movie. And Danny revealed that he took a print of it to the hospital and showed her a few days before she passed.
Yeah, I'd heard. Yeah, and then they spent a lot of time taking care of her.
Yeah,
him and his wife.
Yeah, no, they would have Mara at their house all the time. I love that story, but yeah, it makes me tear up.
Boy, Dave, it's okay. You're okay. Sit up straight.
LA Confidential in 1997, Hercules 97, The Rainmaker 97, Virgin Suicides 99, Man on the Moon 99. We've got to do an episode on Man on the Moon.
Yeah, that's inevitable.
Yeah. Drowning Mona 2000, Heist 2001, Death to Smoochie, which he also directs in 2002, Duplex, which he also directs in 2003, Big Fish, Be Cool, Deck the Halls, Noble Son, When in Rome, The Lorax, Dumbo, Jumanji Next Level, and Haunted Mansion in 2023. Man works.
Yeah, well, it's almost like there might have been something that was holding up a couple of movies for a while and made them all come out at once.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what that could have been.
Yeah.
But,
this was your first time watching. My first time watching this, I grew up with this movie. We had it recorded off of HBO, so we had the VHS tape that had Romancing the Stone written on it, and like half the label was torn, so it was like Amancing the Stone. We watched this all the damn time growing up. I've probably seen this movie easily 30 times, if not more. It's one of my parents' absolute favorites, and my love was rekindled for it when my dad and I watched it actually, probably been about a year ago. And this movie has just always stuck with me. I love that it's got a little bit of everything, which we'll get into, of course.
Well, a little bit of everything.
I would say everything.
Well, I mean, yeah, you've got romance, you got stones, you got adventure, you've got some pretty good racism towards Latinos.
Yeah, there's a good amount of that. Good amount of that.
I mean, for 1984, the way they depict the people of Colombia, it could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been.
Also could have been a little better.
Could have been a little better. But this movie also really opened my eyes to Michael Douglas, because this is the movie that got me interested. Now, given I was still young, so I had to watch like cable viewings of it, but like not Basic Instinct, that was the first one that came to mind. Fatal Attraction, I watched pretty young with my mom, like growing up.
That's not awkward.
Not at all. No, not at all. Like The American President, I remember seeing, like, I went after his filmography pretty hard after this, because I mean, he's a badass in this for one.
I got really into Michael Douglas when I first saw Falling Down.
Falling Down, yeah.
Which I saw when I was 22 for the first time.
15 or 14 when I bought my VHS from Roundabout Books and Trade.
I'm glad I didn't see that young, because I wouldn't have understood any of it.
I remember like my Falling Down story. So I had gotten the VHS and was watching it in my room, and I was watching it before I was supposed to go to a party. This is what a little shit I was. I brought the VHS to the party with me, but not to share with everybody. I went up to another bedroom, because my buddy's house, like his stepfather was a real estate mogul, so they had a mansion out in Springboro area, I want to say. I literally went into a bedroom where I knew a VCR was, and like closed the door and watched like the last 30-40 minutes of Falling Down by myself.
Wow, you're a piece of shit.
Well, and then that ending, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go back to the party now.
Please, no, David.
Wow.
Yeah, I broke away from a party to watch Falling Down by myself.
I will never forget watching it as a 20-something, and that moment where he goes, I'm the bad guy?
I'm the bad guy?
Blew my mind.
Yeah. Oh,
anyway, that'll inevitably
future
be
episode.
on the show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So are you ready to get into this magnificent film?
I will not rest until a stone has been romanced.
Until a stone has been romanced. So we start with a shot inside of a shack as a door is kicked open, and we meet a man named Grogan who is holding a gun on a woman, as a narrator tells us that Grogan was the guy who basically made havoc in this woman's life, killed her dog, raped and killed her sister, burned down her dad's farm, killed her father. Like, the list goes on. And Grogan's holding a gun on her and threatening her, and he's like, where is it? And she, like, motions to a satchel on the bed. He goes to the satchel, and he picks it up, and then he, like, has her start taking her clothes off. She's undoing her garter belt, pulls out a knife, sticks it right into his heart with the throw, and Grogan is dead. She rides off into the sunset, meets Jesse, which is a man on a horse that is basically saving her from the rest of Grogan's men. And that's when we find out that we're finding the end of a romance novel as we meet Joan Wilder.
That Joan is writing currently. She's literally writing the end.
The end, yes.
As we find out that she is a successful romance writer.
Yes.
And then she heads out to go find tissues because she's crying.
Yep.
And then opens a door to ask her, the man in her life.
The man in her life.
If he wants to celebrate.
Yes.
And the man's a cat.
Named Romeo.
Most realistic moment of the entire film.
So she's celebrating, she's getting her liquor, she's getting the cat food, and she drinks her shot.
I love that she opens the little liquor bottle with a pair of pliers. Because it's like referenced later on that she just can't open little bottles.
Yeah. Well, and you said the thing about her crying, she's looking for tissues around the apartment, goes to the box, there's none left, goes to the toilet paper roll, none left, and then she finds a note that says buy tissues, takes that off, and blows her nose into it.
Yeah, very, very funny. I like it a lot.
So good. So she feeds her cat, takes her airline liquor bottle, drinks it down, and then throws the plate and the glass into the fireplace because she's celebrating. The novel is done. Her phone rings. There's no answer, so she puts it back on the receiver, and she leaves to go drop off the manuscript to her agent, Gloria. While she's leaving, she helps a woman up the steps, and the woman's like, hey, I stopped the postman. He was trying to fit this in the box, and he couldn't do it, and she gives her a package, which is from Cartagena. So it's a package not addressed to her, but she has the package now, and she goes to meet Gloria. But while she's out meeting Gloria, we see somebody start to enter her apartment who has a copy of her book, and he's looking for her. He finds her apartment. The maintenance man comes out, and he's like, hey, that's Mrs. Walter's apartment. Who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm looking for her. He walks over to him and stabs the maintenance man.
And it should be mentioned that's a city in Colombia.
Yes.
And also it should be mentioned, the reason he has her book is because there's a photograph of her on the back of the author, and he's using that to find her.
You know, they never addressed the maintenance man stabbing. I've always, the last couple of watches, I'm like, that's never touched on.
He just dies horribly.
He dies horribly and his body's stuffed somewhere.
Yeah, he's blue collar. Nobody cares.
So Gloria meets up with Joan, and they're at a restaurant, and they're looking over guys, and Joan is just not interested, and Gloria comments that she's waiting for her Jesse. And Jesse is Joan's character from her books that is her man of the hour who saves every character.
The dreamy dude who rescues her heroine in all of her books.
So Gloria questions how her sister Elaine is doing, and have they found her husband's body yet? And that's when Joan tells her just that one piece.
Yeah. There's a lot of heavy, dark stuff.
Yeah.
That is... Like, the story is established in very dark things. We find out that he was mutilated.
Yes.
By some very dangerous people. And of course, those dangerous people are now after our heroine.
Because she also says that Elaine sent her a package. She hasn't had a chance to open it yet. And that's when Gloria says, well, Elaine always lands on her feet. We cut to Elaine in Cartagena fleeing her apartment. And as she's driving out in her car, we see a kid noticing her. He starts spinning a bola, spins it, and it wraps around her and knocks her out into the car. He takes the car. The kid literally leaps into the car and just drives away with her in it.
And a bola is a rope with two rocks, basically, or balls on the ends, so that when you throw it, it wraps around things.
Yeah.
I had to look it up for Dave.
Yes, you did, because I was like, what's that called? Because it's not a slingshot.
No, at first it looks like a slingshot until he lets it go,
So we see the kid pull into the compound that's housing crocodiles on the water, and that's when we meet Ralph, played by Danny DeVito, as he sees Elaine being taken to a boat, and Ralph goes over to his brother Ira and talks about, I'm nervous about this kidnapping business. We have all this loot. Like, why are we doing this? And of course, his brother is like, hey, one more big score, then we all retire.
And I've never heard that before in a disingenuous way. Whenever there's a big score, we all retire. It's just the way it works, kids.
So Joan returns home, and she finds her place completely ransacked. Like, he went in there and turned everything around.
I found it to be sacked. I don't know if it was ransacked.
If it was ransacked. Yeah. She gets scared because her cat leaps on her, so at least he didn't kill the cat, which I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I loved your line. You're like, hey, I let him in.
Yeah, the cat just looks her in the face. I let him in.
So she gets a call from Elaine, and she's like, I can't talk right now. And that's when Elaine is like, did you receive a package? And she's like, yeah, I have it right here. And we see that she's being held hostage by Ira and Ralph. They've got a knife on her, and she's like, I need you to bring it to Colombia. I need you to bring it to Cartagena, and you cannot tell anybody, and you cannot bring anyone with you.
And the reaction is, her reaction is like she just asked her to take it to the moon.
Yeah.
And that's when we find out, as she's talking to her friend and agent, that this woman lives for her books only.
Yes.
She's not a cat lady simply because she's unattractive, which she is not. She's beautiful. This is Kathleen Turner at her most dreamy ingenue era.
Yeah.
But we realize that she does not travel. She does not go anywhere. She really just writes her books and hangs out with her cat.
Yep.
But in a moment that really I thought was very touching, when her friend is like, you get airsick, you get train sick, you get car sick, you get everything sick. She's like, it's my sister.
Yeah.
And she needs me.
Yes.
And I love that because that really establishes that we are heading into an adventure with a how would we put it, a soft-footed, a tender-footed. That's the term. A tender-footed an adventure with a tender-footed woman.
Yes. And also, I do want to point out that, of course, she's leaving, so she gives Gloria her cat, and she goes, I need you to feed him and hold him once a day at least.
At least, yeah. She's like, I'll feed him, but I'm not picking him up.
So Joan continues packing. She goes outside, gets in the taxi, and shortly she arrives in Colombia, and we see Ralph is waiting there for her, and Joan is looking for the bus. She's asking people if this is the bus to Cartagena, and that's when the man from her apartment, who we find out his name is Zolo, he's like, yes, this is the bus, and we are revealed that it is not. not. That bus is going to a place, I believe we said it was like San Felipe.
It looked like it was San Felipe.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I caught it just out of the corner of my eye, but the bus had just gone to Cartagena.
Yeah, and they swapped the sign.
Yeah, because, well, they picked it up and flipped it. So
Yeah.
that bus only went to Cartagena or San Felipe.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know. The thing that blew my mind is, so now she's on this bus.
Yeah.
And the only person who appears to speak English is the guy who stabbed her.
Zolo, yes.
The guy. And he's the one kind of helping her a tiny bit by putting her on the wrong bus and stuff. But as she's like asking the bus driver who doesn't speak English, she's going, Cartagena, Cartagena. And he's going, what? Like, he doesn't understand. It's like, I'm sorry. I've been to a foreign country where they don't speak English.
Yeah.
If you go to a person who drives a bus or a taxi and you say a place, they know what you're asking.
Yeah, especially if it's the city that's there.
They know what that means. How could he's like, why are you saying a place over and over? What could it mean?
Well, and unfortunately, since he's distracted by her question, he crashes into a broken down Jeep in the road, and this is quite a crash. Like, they smash right into this thing. The Jeep goes up, all the birds and everything that are in the back of it in cages.
Yeah, there's cages and cages of wild birds.
Yeah, and they all hit the ground, and then, of course, the bus unloads, and everybody from the bus just starts stealing the cargo from the Jeep. And they're taking the birds, they're taking the plants, they're taking everything from this Jeep.
And then just hoofing it somewhere.
Hoofing it. And then she's distracted by finding her suitcase. It's off to the side, and Joan is now left with Zolo, and he's like, don't worry, another bus is coming. And she thinks that everything's okay, and that's when Zolo pulls out a gun, and he's like, give me your bag. And as this happens, we hear some whistling, and we see a man coming over the hill, and Zolo points his gun at him. He's like, hey, freeze. Fires a shot and empties his canteen because the bullet hits it and the water just starts spurting out.
And I apologize. Maybe my brain is a little muddled.
Yeah.
Did we mention what the thing she has is?
Oh, no, we did not.
We glanced over the MacGuffin.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah, because they reveal it in the phone call.
We glanced over the MacGuffin. She got in the mail the day before her sister called, a letter from her husband who is now deceased.
Yeah.
And it's a treasure map.
Treasure map, yes.
So it's a treasure map in Colombia.
Yep.
It's where the treasure is. There's so much to get into and so much adventure. And for those who don't know the term MacGuffin, it's something Alfred Hitchcock, I believe, invented.
Sounds right.
It's just a term for a thing that motivates everybody.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It's just a MacGuffin. Yeah. So he used to write screenplays and just say he picks up the MacGuffin because he'd figure out what it was later.
That's great.
So, so anyway, that's the MacGuffin. That's what she has on her that apparently this guy, what was his name again? Zolo wants. And now we're finding out that Zolo is not with the people that have her sister.
Yes.
Those people are
small-time criminals.
Well, not just that, but they're oddly kind.
Yeah.
They actually aren't like beating her up or anything. They're feeding her and whatever, but they just want the treasure.
They want the treasure, yeah. So he
fires. They even refer to Zolo as a butcher. They say he's like a butcher. He's evil. They're like, whether you call him Dr. Zolo or
General Zolo,
he's a butcher.
He's a butcher. So the canteen's emptying, and of course, the man wastes no time. He draws his shotgun, and we have about a minute of firefight between these two.
A hell of a firefight where Douglas is just bam, 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 bam. I mean, he is just blasting everything with that shotgun.
Blasting the Jeep, blasting at Zolo. I mean, the gunfire is exchanged for a bit to the point where Zolo just hoofs it down the road.
Yeah, because Zolo's got a little pistol and Douglas is just reloading the shotgun again
so
and
many
again.
shells, my God.
Yeah, no, I mean, he seriously lit up everything.
Yeah, so Joan is taking cover under the bus, and Zolo runs off, and that's when we meet Jack Colton, the owner of the broken down Jeep, as he's pissed because all these birds are gone now.
Yeah, and they don't quite mention it, but that would make him what we call a poacher.
Yes.
He was capturing fancy birds, and then he was going to smuggle them out of the country and sell them for big, big money.
Yeah.
So now he's livid. Half a year's work is gone.
Yep.
And of course, our main character needs help.
Yes.
He speaks English. He's American. She asks him for help. He has no interest until he finds out she's got green.
She's got green indeed. So he finds her under the bus and she's like, I need help. And he's like, not interested. And she's like, I'll pay you. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Zolo gets picked up by Ralph, who is looking for Joan, of course.
Ralph, played by Danny DeVito, who is the representative of, I guess we'll call them the good guys.
I guess
the guys, the criminal,
the lesser bad guys,
the lesser bad guys.
And he knows who Zolo is, so he's ignoring him, and he's like, I don't speak English. And he's like, well, maybe you speak French. And so he
Well,
ends up...
he says, I don't speak English. He just goes, I hate Americans. Americano. And he goes, you must be French.
Yes.
Which is a great line.
So good. So Jack, digging through the wreckage, finds a picture of a sailboat stating, it looks like we're going to have to wait a little longer. Joan questions the nearest town, and he says, oh, that's Miami. And he's like, Cartagena is on the very, very far side of this.
She spent all night on a bus going away from Cartagena.
Yeah. So she asks for his help. Of course, he refuses, and she's like, I'll pay you $50. And he's like, I may have a sense of humor, but not that much. Goes to 100, goes to 200, and Jack's like, 500. And she's like, 375 in traveler's check. He's like, you got a deal.
Well, because at that moment he realizes that's all she got.
Yeah, that's all she got. So they begin to trek as the storm moves in. Ralph drops off Zolo at a local police station, and Zolo tells them to assemble their men. As they're walking, heavy rain starts to hit Joan and Jack, who are trekking the road, and Jack sees that she's struggling with a suitcase, so he ends up just chucking it over the side because he asks her if there's anything valuable in it.
Yeah, is there anything valuable in it? Do you have any walking shoes, an umbrella? And when she says no, yeets it away. But then, as she's angry about it, she hits a mudslide.
Yeah.
And then before he can even laugh at it, he falls down the mudslide. I love it because
he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. And they slide down like a full-blown luge course.
Oh, it's insane. Like, it is insane. And then they hit this huge body of water, and what's funny is he lands right between her legs.
Yeah, like his head lands right between her legs.
Yeah.
And when he stands up, he just starts laughing, and then I love it, he just pushes his hair on his face, and he goes, what a morning this turned out to be.
And then he asks her his name, and that's when he tells her that she's Joan. And so at the police station, Ralph calls Ira explaining Joan's mess up, and one of the funniest things in this whole conversation is Ralph notices that their wanted posters are on the wall.
Yeah, that he is on the wall as a wanted poster. So he's like hiding his face from the cops. He has his hand like separating them. And then as soon as they look away, he rips it off the wall and
then
falls
off the counter.
desk.
So he tells Ira that Zolo is there, and that's when Zolo is sitting with Elaine, and he's like, oh, well, it seems like somebody else has joined, the squad. And she's like, the man that murdered my husband. He goes, the butcher that married your husband, or that murdered your husband.
Married your husband.
What a new story that would be.
But yeah, and that's when we realize that there's 100% two different people after this.
Yeah.
And that one is much more dangerous than the other.
Yeah. So Jack chops the heels off of Joan's shoes because she needs practical walking shoes. Zolo arrives at the squad and opens fire on them, making Jack question, what the hell did I do? He's like, oh, they're after you. What did you do?
Yeah. And I will mention, he yells to the cops firing at him.
Yeah.
He yells, Garillas. Basically, I would assume he was trying to he was telling the cops that these were guerrilla fighters in the woods, in the jungle, which was a thing, may still be in Colombia, is that guerrilla war fighters hide in the jungles, usually the communists.
Every time I think of guerrillas, I think of Captain Ron.
Of course you do.
So Zolo arrives at the squad. They start opening fire on them. Jack's like, who the hell are you? And they take off going through the jungle. They make it to the edge of a cliff, and quick thinking, Jack gets ready for another firefight. Meanwhile, Joan's like, hey, there's a bridge. And he's like, that's not a bridge. That's ancient ruins. Like, we do not want to go on that.
No, sir.
She doesn't listen. She ends up falling through the bridge, but as she does, she swings onto a vine across to the other side, and Jack's like, well, holy shit, I'm going to go do that.
Well, it's not like I want to go do that. It's like, well, that's the option.
And of course, she makes it to the other side fine. He slams right into a rock, which if you pay close attention, you see the rock just go in just a little smidge.
Close attention? If you're looking in the direction of the screen,
if you're watching an HD transfer,
it's a very soft rock.
It's a very soft rock. So it's
like the Eagles.
They make it to the edge, and Joan enjoys a shot while Jack catches up with her, and it's one of my favorite lines because she's just sitting on the ground drinking one of her airline liquors, and he's like, "What are you doing? Drinking?" And then he takes a shot.
Yeah. And then the bullets start whizzing past him again.
So they catch up with them, and Zolo and his men move in on pursuit. Zolo and his men give up after a bit, and they decide to try another route. Moving through the forest, they come to a crashed airplane, a big crashed airplane in the middle of the jungle.
With a pilot.
Dead pilot
just hanging out of the window with aviator glasses on.
And a Grateful Dead jacket, because we find out there is a bunch of weed on this plane.
Yeah, which I loved his line because she's like, what is this? He's like, she's like, drugs, or I don't know, she said,
what is it? He's like a 5 to 10 or
5 to 10 years in America and a couple centuries here.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
And she's like, oh, marijuana.
Yeah, and then he's like, you smoke marijuana? She's like, I went to college.
So Jack is, they decide to take shelter in the plane, obviously, and while trying to start a fire, he's looking for matches in her bag, and that's when he finds the map. And he's like, you and I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So we smash cut to them putting weed onto the fire that they're burning as the fire in the plane. So they're just getting baked.
Yeah. He's like, hey, not a bad fire, huh?
And Jack's looking over the map and he explains the map leads to what they're referring to as the heart. And he's like, do you know what that is? And she's like, I have no idea. I just know that the men want this and I'm going to give it back for my sister. And he's like, well, what if we took this map and found the treasure before they did? And then you've got a better bargaining chip for your sister.
Because they want the map because they want what's there. So if we go get what's there, we can march into town and have the best bargaining chip.
And while this is going on, I do want to mention one of my favorite lines. Jack finds a really old copy of the Rolling Stone that he's flipping through, and while she's talking to him, he's like, shit, the Doobie Brothers broke up. And he flips over the magazine. He's like, when did that happen?
Yeah, and she's like, how long have you been away from the States?
Yeah. So while they're enjoying the fire, she's like, making sure that like he's on the up and up and that he's not, just going to take the map. A snake comes up behind her because it's a great fake out because you think for a second he's going to go after her because he raises a machete, kills the snake. It's a Bushmaster, and that's what they end up eating. So we see Zolo's mercs arrive at the police station, and they hand him his uniform, and that's when we know shit's about to get bad.
Yeah, it's about to get real, real bad.
So back in the plane, Jack finally tells Joan his name, Jack T. Colton, and he explains that he's a fortune seeker, and with his loss of the bird today, he's set back about $15,000. They talk for a little bit, but Joan eventually passes out, and that's when Jack hawks the map and starts studying it, and he finds a marking called the Devil's Fork, which is the next thing they have to look out for. So the next day, Joan and Jack are hiking through the town as they run into some drug runners who just start kind of trailing behind them, and, Jack's like, don't pay any attention.
It's in a little village.
Yeah, a little village, and he's like, don't pay any attention to them. They start talking to him, and Jack is about to open fire on these guys.
Yeah, he's about to shoot them, and there's like 6 of them.
6 of them. And then Joan's like, we're looking for a car. Do you guys know where a car is? And they're like, oh, well, go talk to the bell maker. So they go up to this really nice house, the only really nice house in this village.
Well, you can't really tell it's nice at first because it's behind like a wood wall.
Yeah.
It's almost like a fort.
Yeah.
And then when they knock on the door, this little slot opens like the Wizard of Oz. And he's like, what do you want? And they say, we heard you had a car. And he's just like, go away.
Yeah.
And then he points a gun through the slot.
The road.
It's the road.
He cocks the gun. They turn around. They're backing away. And that's when they realize his 6 guys have followed them there. And they have their guns ready on him. And Jack goes, all right, write your way out of this one, Joan Wilder. And that's when we meet Juan, the guy with the gun behind the door. He's like, Joan Wilder? I read your books.
Yeah, and then he turns to the guys and goes, hey, this is the woman whose books I read to you on Saturdays.
Every Saturday. Yeah. It's so good. So they arrive at the home of the gentleman, he welcomes them in.
When they come in, everybody is dressed like drug runners and poor farmers. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, khaki shorts, and sandals. He looks like a rich guy from Miami.
Yeah.
And as they go through the doors, he has this amazing palatial estate.
Amazing estate. Oh, my God.
And with like a workout area and maids walking around, and he is so excited to talk to his favorite author.
So meanwhile, Zolo and his men arrive at the village. They start harassing a woman who's ignoring him, and a young boy witnesses, and we see him book it towards Juan House. Juan is telling Joan about his fandom, offering her the liquor, and like he puts on a hat and some sunglasses. He's like, I could be a character in your book.
Yeah. And then they find out there's no phone in this town.
There's no phone in the town.
The nearest town that has a phone is quite a ways away. And they say, well, could we use your car in some way? And that's what he says. Oh, they were joking with you. I have a little mule.
Pepe.
But then we find out, go on, Dave.
Pepe is a giant ass truck.
Yeah, big old Ford.
So Juan evades Zolo's men, and they're shooting at him this whole drive. He's driving through the village, pointing out landmarks, telling them stories.
Yeah, because he like all he wants to do is show her around the village.
Yeah.
He's like, see that field over there? My mom was born in that field. See that tree over there? My brother planted that tree.
So finally, they're trying to evade them at the last second, and they make it to this river. And Joan's like, "Oh, you mean the one without a bridge?" And Jack's like, "What do you mean the one?" Or no, Jack's like, "You mean the one without a bridge?" And she's like, "What do you mean the one without a bridge?" That's when we see Juan hold up a remote. He pushes a button. A ramp comes out, and they ramp it over the river. But as they land, he presses the button again, and now it's just a blockade. Yeah. And one car smashes into it, so now Zolo and his men cannot cross.
Yeah, and they fall into the river. And now they're just whipping through the countryside. Awesome stuff. That was a great chase scene.
I love that chase
sequence. Very good.
We are not even doing it justice. You have to see this chase sequence. It goes on for at least, I want to say, like 3 to 4 minutes.
It's a good 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good dialogue in the chase scene, too.
Yeah.
But it's excellent.
So Juan takes them to a hillside, and Jack is looking around. They're lounging, and he notices there's a tree that looks an awful lot like the Devil's Fork. So he's like, all right, well we got to get going. So
Juan mentions that it's the Devil's Fork.
Devil's Fork. So he tells them it's time to go. Juan Juan takes them into town, dropping them off right inside of Ralph, who is on the phone with Ira. He's like, I lost them. And he's like, you are the luckiest son of a bitch. Guess who just pulled up? So now Ralph is on their trail once again, and Jack checks into a hotel room. He tells Joan, I guess this is the end. But before that, he asks the clerk if they have a Xerox machine, and he's like, we do. Because before that, he asked Juan, and he's like, oh, it's broken. Because he wants to copy the map.
So he gets a hotel room with a bathroom.
Yep.
Because he asks the guy, and the guy says all of our hotels have bathrooms. He's like, oh, you speak English, great. So then he goes to Joan, and he says, well, she pays him.
Yep.
And he says, well, before you go, at least let me buy you dinner.
Yeah.
And then he gives her the room key and says, why don't you go get cleaned up? I'll get us some new rags to wear. And she gets out of the shower and finds a beautiful dress.
Yes.
They get together. They have a wonderful, and this is where finally some romancing, but this is where it starts to really click that they're falling in love.
Yeah, and there's a giant celebration going on in the town.
Yeah, the town is just having a massive party.
And so they share a dance, and we see Ralph trying to steal the map, and he's hiding under this woman's table, and this guy finds him and just starts shaking the shit out of him.
DeVito is the comic relief to a T in this film, yeah.
So they share a dance, and they share their first kiss. They go back to Jack's room and make love, and Joan tells him, I think we should go along with your plan. I think we should go get the treasure and the better bargaining chip.
Well, she asks him in a pretty confrontational way. She asks him, why haven't you stolen the map?
Yeah.
And he's very taken aback, and she's like, well, I just would assume you would steal the map.
Yeah.
So,
and that's when they reveal, as they go back to making out, that Jack puts his hand down and pulls the map under the mattress and puts it back in her bag.
Yeah, he had stolen the map.
Stolen the map indeed. So in the morning, Zolo and his men arrive in the village, and Jack and Joan sneak out past them. They end up stealing Ralph's car, unaware that he is sleeping in the back, and now they are following all the landmarks to the treasure. They end up at a waterfall, folding the map to reveal a heart and reveal a waterfall on it. So they go behind the waterfall, and they're looking for what's called Mother's Milk as the last landmark. And they find this white body of water, this little puddle. They start digging through it, and they find an Easter Bunny statue.
Which I laughed out loud when I saw.
It's because I love it, because Jack goes, somebody's got a real sick sense of humor.
Yeah, and then Joan points out that in one of her books, they hid the treasure in a statue.
In the statue.
So they shatter it open and find the most impossibly green jewel you've ever seen.
A giant green jewel.
Yes.
And Ralph appears with a gun drawn on them. He takes it from him, has him put it in a bag, and he has them go outside with them. Just as Zolo and his men arrive on the hill, Ralph books it. They steal his car, and they're chasing after him. Jack leaps out, tackles Ralph, gets the jewel, and they get back in the car, speeding away. And then I love Ralph's line, "Oh my God, Mounties!" Yeah,
there's just the horse-mounted cops of some sort. Yeah.
So Ralph is on the ground. The Mounties surround him, and Joan decides that since they're in pursuit, she's going to go ahead and ramp the car right into the river. The water carries them into a waterfall. They leap out of the car as it goes over, and they are now on separate sides of the river. And Jack's like, I've got the diamond. I've got the jewel. I'll meet you back at Cartagena. I'll meet you at the Cartagena Hotel. Look for me. So she gets to the Cartagena Hotel and finds out that Jack is not checked in, and she calls Ira and sets up the exchange. And Ira's like, you see the castle outside your window? Meet me there in 2 hours. Come alone. And this is where we get to the finale.
It's a hell of a finale, too. It's hard to run down an adventure movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so much spectacle, so much great music, so much incredible stunts, and this is the height of 80s stunts.
Yes.
So it's just crazy car crashes, machine guns, rat-a-tat-tatting ad nauseum.
There is a lot of violence in this movie.
It's so good, but not a lot of people getting shot.
No.
They do a whole thing where, when they were in the little village earlier, in Juan's village, where the machine gun bullets are going across walls and a cow's just standing there not getting hit. Yeah, it's super good.
So 2 hours later, Joan arrives at the castle, and she's walking around, and she hears Ira's voice, and he's like, show me the map. Let me see you have it. Lay it down. He finds out that she does have a lane, and they swap because he goes up, and he's looking at the map, and he's like, if this is genuine, if this is a fake, and it doesn't complete that sentence. So he puts on his little monocle, and he's looking at the map, and he does the fake out of Joan Wilder. You and your sister can go.
Yeah, it's such a great fake out. You and your sister can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Elaine and Joan are moving, and then all of a sudden gunfire surround their feet, and that's when we find out that Zolo is there, but not just Zolo. Jack pops out and goes, "Missed you at the hotel." Pushes him. The guards surround him. We all did. So they ambushed him at the Cartagena Hotel, and they also know that they've got the treasure because down on the ground goes Ralph, who has been beaten to a pulp, and he has another one of my favorite lines where he's like, "Ira, these hands are going to break every bone in your body." later.
Yeah,
later.
They cock the gun. He's like, later, though.
So Zolo burns the map. He's like, it's useless. They already have the treasure. He asks about the stone, and Joan claims that they don't know where it is. They dug, but they found nothing. So Zolo decides to take her to a crocodile pit, and he cuts her hands, summoning the crocs, and Jack tells him to stop. He goes, she doesn't know where it is, but the stone is close, and he goes, where is it? And he's like, it's close. I've got it in a safe place. That's when he has one of his men hit him right in the balls with a gun stock.
Wicked hard.
Wicked hard. But that also reveals that he shakes around a little bit, and out comes the stone onto his foot, just bouncing on his foot.
Yeah, had it in the old crotch pocket.
Had it in the crotch pocket. He has it resting on his foot, and he goes, choke on it, and kicks it across, and Zolo catches it. He goes, thank you, my friend. But he doesn't realize his hand is right over the crocodile pit as one just snaps his hand right off.
It jumps up and gorily rips his hand off. And I think that the reason they could get away with that in PG-13 is because he was such a bad guy.
Yeah, he's the villain.
He had done so many bad things that it rips his hand off, and he immediately is like covering it and trying to wrap it up.
He's going crazy.
I mean, it's a very violent moment.
Very violent moment. So that's when Jack knocks out a guard. He steals the gun, getting a gun, just opening fire on everybody. Joan grabs Zolo's knife, and he takes Elaine to safety. Zolo is pissed now. He arms himself with a sharp piece of wood, and he goes after Joan and Elaine. And that's when Jack notices that the croc that ate the stone is getting out of the water and possibly getting away.
I gotta get that stone.
So he goes after the croc and begins to move through the castle. Gunfire erupts all around the castle as Ira and his men are scrambling, with Ralph trailing behind them. They get on a boat, and of course Ralph is like, come back for me. And he's like, I'll send the boat back for you. When? Soon.
And the boat only goes
like
the little boat
100 feet.
I think like 60. Like, it just goes over the water a little bit to a bigger ship.
Yeah,
and he's just like soon.
So Jack trails the croc as it begins to exit to the water. He grabs it and he's got it by the tail, and that's when he sees that Zolo is caught up to Joan and Elaine, and she's crying for help, and she also still has his knife. He's getting up on her, and she throws the knife just like out of the beginning of the movie with her character, and he catches it on the piece of wood, takes it, and now he's charging at her. Jack has the gun right behind him, still holding the croc, and he decides that he's going to go for the gun. When he's right in the line of sight, he goes and fires the gun, and click. It's empty.
Yes.
So now Joan is right in Zolo's sight, and Jack starts scaling he literally starts scaling the wall of the castle, which I kind of forgot.
He just starts climbing it. It's epic. It's totally epic.
Totally epic. So,
and it's important to mention, by letting go of the tail of the crocodile, in theory, the stone is possibly gone forever.
Yeah.
Because now the crocodile's in the ocean.
Yeah. So the croc,
in the river, whatever.
Yeah, the croc goes down. Jack is scaling the wall, and Zolo has made it up to Joan, and they're fighting and rolling on the ground, and they're right above a croc pit, which has just wood bearing over it. Joan struggles as Jack climbs the tower, and finally she grabs Zolo's cigar that he smokes the entire movie, basically. He's going through them all, and she burns him with it. He rolls over onto a lantern, and now he's on fire. He's even more pissed. He comes after her, but he is so weakened by this point, he just falls straight into the crock pit.
Into the crock pot.
The crock pot,
right into the crock pot. So, yes, it was. I remember when his arm got bit off, I turned to you, I was like, are we watching Hook?
Yeah. So Ralph is left by Ira as the police begin to arrive. Jack tells Joan and Elaine to get to the American embassy, tell them everything except don't mention his name. He goes back with Cartagena police, and he doesn't want that coming back on him. Yeah. So she goes, you're leaving me? And he goes, you're going to be all right, Joan Wilder. And they share one more kiss, and then he dives off the tower into the water, swims away. And now we cut back to New York sometime later. Gloria sits at the desk reading and gushing over Joan's new book, and we find out that she has completely written about her adventure.
Yeah, although...
Yes.
In the version she wrote, he finds her at the airport,
yes.
and they travel the world together, which was not necessarily what happened.
Not necessarily at all, and she calls her a world-class, hopeless romantic, and she corrects her, hopeful romantic. So we see Joan carrying groceries going back to her house, and right in front of her house is a giant sailboat on a trailer that just happens to be the one that Jack was looking at, and there's Jack on top of the boat.
And I gotta say, loved that image. Was not expecting a sailboat in the middle of New York City.
No.
And it's giant.
It's giant with the sail up and everything.
Yeah, it's huge, and he's standing on it, and I felt like this was the moment that I was like, all right, this movie's super romantic.
Yes, so he kicks a rope ladder up, she climbs up, and as she gets to the top, he reveals that he has crocodile boots, and he says, poor guy had a fatal case of indigestion, died right in my arms, and she says, I can't think of a better place I would be. They share a kiss, and the boat starts moving through the town, and that is the end of Romancing the Stone.
Yes, and what a ride that film is. Sincerely, I can't believe I missed out on it. I really loved it. super, super fun.
It's a lot of fun.
And before we get into our
trivia,
our trivia, you want to do the rent it or buy it, or what you think?
This is 100% a buy it for me.
Yeah,
yeah. I think this is one of the best romantic adventures. A couple years ago, I think it's been a couple years now. The Lost City came out with Channing Tatum,
which I really enjoyed. Yeah,
and I remember watching it, being like, man, this reminds me so much of Romancing the Stone. And Lost City is a really good movie. The reveal of the treasure at the end, especially, is so good. But Romancing the Stone, it's a buy it for me because this, like I said at the beginning of the show, has a little bit of everything. It's a super fun movie, moves at a bullet pace. I mean, you are in and out, it feels like, almost.
Yeah, it zooms.
And you've got a great cast of characters. You got a great bunch of action sequences. You've got some really sweet romantic scenes, a lot of laughs. And overall, I mean, you are just going to have a good time with this movie. Any crowd. And family, friends, everybody will like this movie.
Okay, well, for me, I'm gonna give it a rent it.
Okay.
I think it's a must watch especially if you love 80s nostalgia.
Yeah.
If you're a nostalgia freak, then you would absolutely want to own it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I think that at the very least, it needs to be in your brain library.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have seen it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say wait for it to come about to you. I would say seek it out and give it a watch.
Absolutely.
I think Romancing the Stone was very good, even if I felt like the stone was not that romance.
So we'll get to that in a second, actually.
Oh,
so
okay.
The film had a budget of $10 million. What would you like to... It was a modest success, we'll just say.
Well, you already told me it was a hit.
It was gangbusters.
Because that's what brought about Back to the Future.
Take a guess at worldwide. Just take a guess at worldwide.
I would guess in the 100 million range.
$115 million.
Wow.
Released
that is a friggin' hit.
March 30th of 1984. Like I said, everybody thought it was going to flop. Studio executives fired Zemeckis from Cocoon over it, and then it becomes a big hit, so much so that they put out the sequel the very next year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So studio execs were so sure the film would flop, Zemeckis was fired, and that's like what got him his Back to the Future to be made, because they were like, you know what? You're good. Go ahead.
Whoopsie doodle.
In the famous dance sequence, Douglas was not aware that he was being filmed. He was dancing with Turner and some of the extras and was surprised to find Zemeckis had been filming the entire time.
Maybe believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little harder to sneak a gigantic 35 millimeter camera around, but maybe that's true. I can believe it.
The film was originally supposed to be in Colombia. However, life imitated art, and there was a rise in American kidnapping, so the filming was moved to Mexico.
Yeah, when the film started, I was like, Colombia in like the height of the cocaine trade.
Yeah.
Doesn't really seem like the way to go.
Not really.
So, yeah, Mexico, I think, smarter.
So, according to Kathleen Turner's memoir, Douglas originally offered the role to Deborah Winger, but after a fateful meeting at a Mexican restaurant where, according to Douglas, she ended up biting him, she didn't get the part.
I have so many thoughts and questions.
Same.
But you know what, though? But I had this button made specially for moments like this.
What? And quit show business?
That's great.
Yeah, I've been waiting to unveil that one to you for a while.
That's fantastic.
But what else? What other trivia you got for
Romancing the Stone is jeweler's jargon that refers to a step in preparing a gem for use in jewelry.
Oh, okay.
So that is where Romancing the Stone comes from.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, Jack Nicholson, Christopher Reeve all turned down the role of Jack T. Colton. Stallone turned down the role to star in Rhinestone, a decision that he unfortunately went to regret.
I mean, it would be a whole other movie with Stallone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it'd be fun, but it'd be a totally different film.
I feel like it would have been a hard R.
I don't know if it would have been a hard R, but I feel like it would have been a lot funnier.
Yeah, I can see
it would have to be funny, or it would have had to have been like a straight action movie, which I don't think really would fit the tone of this this film at all.
No, not at all. So Jessica Lange turned down the role for Joan Wilder for the desire to tackle more serious work.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Many believe that Romancing the Stone is a ripoff or a cash-in on the success of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The script, however, was written in 1979 before Raiders even existed, and it wouldn't be another 5 years before the film went into production. And finally, Douglas, while billed first, does not appear in the film until the first 24 minutes.
That's true. He comes in right at the second act.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are the notes and trivia on Romancing the Stone. I love this movie. I cannot say that enough. And we like to end the show by giving a couple recommendations. I've got 2 this week. First one is Bird on a Wire with Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn from 1990. An old flame discovers her ex-boyfriend from the past is a relocated FBI informant out to stop the bad guys. It's a really fun, loaded action movie and a lot of comedy.
Sure.
That you can find pretty easily. And the second one I'm going to give is The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy from 1986.
Really?
I think it's a pretty good romantic adventure, even though romance isn't super heavy in it.
For the record, he doesn't romance the child.
He does not.
The golden child. No.
A private detective specializing in missing children is charged with the task of finding a special child whom dark forces want to eliminate. If you want a movie with demons, Eddie Murphy quibbing nonstop, and there is a full scene that features the Rat song Body Talk in a biker house that I've always loved.
That's fair. Yeah.
Golden Child and Bird on a Wire, those are my 2 recommendations. What you got?
Well, my recommendations, considering I had to watch the film first, I would say Overboard.
I almost said Overboard.
Yeah, Overboard is definitely a big one for me because I think that has a similar mindset and a similar attitude. And if I wanted to go with something else that I think you would like if you like this movie, but it isn't just like it, I would have to go with Mom and Dad Save the World.
That's a good pick.
I love Mom and Dad Save the World.
I think Mom and Dad Save the World's fun.
I know. It's just Jeffrey Jones keeps sneaking back into our show.
He does.
It's worrisome, but no. Romancing the Stone from 1984.
Yes.
I can't. You can't beat a good time with those 2 actors.
I'm so happy that you enjoyed it. I knew you would, but like I just when we finished and you were just like, that was really good, I was quite happy because now I'm 2 for 2. So the third one's I'm probably gonna fuck up whatever it is.
Quit bullying me. Well, my friends, before we get out of here after another thrilling edition of Do You Even Movie, we just want to say thank you guys so much for checking us out, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast feed. If you want to find out more about what we're doing here, you can go to doyouevenmovie.com. And if you are watching on YouTube, please leave a comment about the film if you have your own opinions you want to share.
Yes.
We love the comments. We love getting emails at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com. I am exhausted.
I feel that.
Because we have been recording ahead. Dave has been selflessly helping me get recorded ahead. Then I got COVID, which made it a little hard to catch up.
Absolutely.
But we're recording ahead because I'm producing a movie for the next 10 days coming up. So I won't have time to sit down with you and watch a flick for a little while. But we will be back next time with The Little Giants, which I cannot wait to revisit. The Little Giants. And is there anything else you want to get across before we take off?
Of course, you can also follow us on the other socials. We are on TikTok at Do You Even Movie Pod, along with Instagram as well at Do You Even Movie Pod. You can find us on X and Facebook, and make sure that you give us some ratings on Apple or Spotify. Yeah. We would love to have some more of those ratings, or even just reviews, ratings, whatever. It helps people see us.
Straight up, if you are sitting here and you have listened this long, you're listening all the way to the end, take a second right now. If you go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, even if you're not listening there, go to Do You Even Movie. Just type in Do You Even Movie there. Giving us a 5-star rating on there immensely helps people discover the show.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty decent audience checking out the podcast. A lot of you, I'm thrilled to say, have joined us from Freddy's Nightmares podcast. And we really do appreciate it. Oh, and we've been getting proofs of the Freddy's Nightmares companion book that we are co-authors on. It's still a ways away, but I wouldn't be surprised. It might, don't quote me on this, but it might be good by October.
I would love that.
So, and when that happens, we'll do a special show, which will be simulcast here and on the old Freddy's Nightmares podcast feed. That'll be really exciting.
That will be fun.
But for now, my friends, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next Tuesday. You laugh every time because you're a child.
Yeah, that's fair.
You child.